Hello, gente del sol. My name is Dr. Gabino Aguirre. I am then the coordinator for, among other things, a vaccine access and outreach project here in the county of Ventura. During the time that we've been conducting this campaign, we've touched almost 1 million people here in Ventura County. We've worked with about 50,000 families. We've distributed 250,000 rapid tests. And we continue to do the good thing, which is to help minimize the spread of the pandemic amongst our people. So I'm here in front of the Farm Worker Monument, the Santa Paula Farm Worker Monument. The Santa Paula Farm Worker Monument is the only monument in the country, and I would say probably the world, that honors the contributions and labor of farm workers all over. Farm workers continue to sacrifice their life to do the right thing in providing food for everybody else. So, however, today, as they continue to sacrifice, they continue to have high rates of infection and a high morbidity rate as well. So the reason for this is because they're not provided the kind of protections that they need in order to be safe. What might be some of those protections? Well, if you think of farm work, you're crowded out in the field, next to each other, exposed to pesticides, exposed to the elements. It's hot, it's cold, the wind is blowing. So when you're out there, that level of exposure then causes you to be sick. So what does a farm worker do when they get sick or when they start showing the symptoms of an infection like with COVID, with the pandemic? Well, they know that they need to go to work because they have their compañera, compañero, the families at home. And in order for that family to survive, they need to go to work. As essential workers, they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice because they're mandated to go to work. And this mandate is enforced because the reality is, if they don't expose themselves, if they don't go into that dangerous situation where they're, working with other farm workers shoulder to shoulder, if they don't put themselves there, then how are they going to pay the bills? How are they going to feed their families? So, crowded living conditions. We have a housing crisis here in Ventura County. And that means that in order for you to have a 1 or a 2 bedroom apartment, you got to pony up $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 a month. If farm workers average $25,000 a year for the family, there goes all the feria. It goes to pay the rent. So what happens with food, health, medicine, etc.? What happens with all of that? Well, you have a choice to make. And the choice that you have to make, because of the conditions, the housing industry here in Ventura County, the choice that you make is you invite other people to come and rent the house where you're living, the apartment where you're living. And sometimes it comes down to renting a room, but sometimes it comes down to renting a bed. And that bed, you rent it for 8 hours. So during the time that you're out of work, then you have a chance to rest and recuperate. However, when those 8 hours are up, you got to jam, you got to leave because another hardworking farm worker or essential worker then has to use that bed. And at the end of the 8 hours, the third shift comes on. So that's a reality of housing. That's a reality of living conditions. So it's no secret that farm workers, as essential workers, then continue to suffer disproportionately from various illnesses, including diabetes, respiratory illnesses, high BMI index, that means obesity. So that complicates the situation. So when you get sick, you're at a higher risk of more serious medical conditions. So how does this happen? that we put essential workers, farm workers, into a situation? Well, gente, it's politics. Politics that defiles, politics that criminalizes people coming over the border looking for a better life. They haven't done anything except walk thousands of miles from Central America to get to Mexico, to get to the Mexican border. And then after the Mexican border, after they've been dodging the bullet, so to speak, because everybody's exploiting them as they coming along, especially women. I think I heard that 90% of women that come across the border are abused sexually and assaulted sexually. So those kinds of conditions are created through politics. And the previous president that we had here was one of the major contributors to that fear. So when politics gets in the game, that fear causes people to live in the shadows. And when you're in the shadows, then you're fearing that if you send your children to school, that you might never see them again. That if you go to the doctor because you're sick and you give up your name and your address and your phone, that they're gonna come and get you. So that if they come and get you, they're gonna put you in a cage just like they've done at the border. Not only are they gonna put you in a cage, but they're gonna put your children in a cage. And once they're in cages, your cage is gonna be over here and your children's cage might be 2,000 miles across the country, whereas you're here in Califas and your children get sent to Homestead in Florida or a place like that. So what do? Well, with that fear, you keep a low profile as much as you can. And you continue to expose yourself to those kinds of dangers that are decimating our farm worker population. So what can you do about this? Well, you have to be strong. And you have to realize that the scant protections that are provided for you to be safe, that you need to follow them, every single one of them. So when they say wash your hands as often as possible. And if out in the field, your employer is not providing the necessary hand washing equipment for you to do that, then you gotta call somebody about it. And you can let VC recovers know. You can call the health department, and we're not really gonna take your name or anything like that. We just wanna know who's the culprit, who's the employer, because we will send somebody there to take care of that, all right? So get vaccinated. We hear that the vaccination is not a good thing, that vaccines might not be effective. Maybe they are effective, that there's 3 or 4 different kinds of vaccines, and some of them are better for some variants and some for others. Well, the bottom line is the vaccines that are available have a 96, 98% protection that you can have. So even if you're exposed to COVID, you might get a little bit sick, but you're not gonna die. Today, all the people, 99% of all the people that are winding up in the hospital are unvaccinated. So ahora, la pandemia es de los no vacunados. ¿Verdad? So we don't want you to be one of those. We want you to wear a mask all the time. And if you call your camaradas to come over for a carne asada, or the familias to come over and celebrate the fact that we're alive and we're working and things are, not as bad as they could be. When you have those kinds of gatherings, then you have to protect yourself. You have to protect the children around you by wearing this máscara. No porque somos luchadores, pero podemos decir que sí, ¿verdad? Porque estamos luchando siempre con la pandemia y con la vida. Así es de que, además de eso, cuiden a los niños mucho. Ahora se ofrece la oportunidad de vacunarse a los niños, así es de que no se aplomen. you need to have your children protected as well. Some folks say, well, children don't really get sick. Well, they're winding up in the hospital more and more. So if you're here in this country to provide a better life for your children and for your family, then your responsibility is to keep them as safe as possible, right? So here we are in La Lucha. You know, I myself am president of an organization called Lucha. En La Lucha estamos siempre. Y durante el tiempo que hemos trabajado aquí con esta organización, we've worked in lots of areas. Youth issues with youth, education, cultura's big with us, getting involved in some politics, not directly, but we promote initiatives that will help farm workers and our families. We advocate for housing, we advocate for health care, we advocate for mental health, all of those things that every family should have in order to be safe and healthy. That's what we advocate for. So anyway, we are celebrating Cesar Chavez's legacy, but not only his legacy, but we want to recognize Dolores Huerta as well. But let us understand this, that it's not about an individual who handles the movement, who pushes the movement, who wins the movement. It's not about one person. It's about all of us coming together so that we can have a force that they will have to reckon with. And if we're one going to City Hall to make a demand on cleaner parks for our children, they're going to probably just blow you off. But if 10, 20, 50, 100 people show up making that demand, something's going to happen and you're probably going to get what you want. So la unión es la fuerza, and that's what we're all about. So here at this monument, we've recognized this all along. Myself as a farm worker, when I was 6 years old, pulling a cotton sack, picking cotton in West Texas, you know, that was the life that we had. And over time, as I drive around Ventura County and I look at everybody still in the fields, still hunched over, still exposed to pesticides, my heart hurts for them. Yeah? And this pain that I feel for them is part of a pain that I had when I was experiencing that kind of lifestyle way back in the day. So anyway, la unión es la fuerza, y que viva Cesar Chavez, que viva Dolores Huerta, que vivan todos los campesinos, y adelante pues con la lucha. Muchas gracias.